hottest toys of the 1980s and 90s were a combination of new creations and classics that found massive success decades after their release. These are the most popular toys of the 80s and 90s. The Rubik's Cube was invented in 1974 by a college professor named Erno Rubik. Funny enough, it took him a month to solve his own puzzle. And by the 1980s, over 100 million Rubik's Cubes have been sold. Today, only 1 in 7 people can complete it. And I happen to be one of them. These plush bears released in 1981 and went on to be in books, TV shows, and movies.
We're the Care Bears, and we care about you.
Each character represented a different concept or emotion with a name to match.
This is Bedtime Bear, and Friend Bear, and Birthday Bear.
This is a concept that may seem familiar to you. Regardless, over 40 million Care Bears were sold between 1983 and 1987, defining kindness for an entire generation.
Who asked you to care about me?
Thought you were going to get through the holidays without hearing from us about the Cabbage Patch dolls? Wrong.
Cabbage Patch Kids took things to the next level in 1983. These farm-to-table orphans were released right in time for Christmas, but stores only had between 200 and 500 dolls to offer customers, creating a supply and demand vacuum. Luckily, everyone was totally cool about it.
In Pennsylvania, it was a near riot. One woman broke her leg. 4 others were hurt. One store official armed himself with a baseball bat.
And Cabbage Patch Kids still exist, but people are no longer willing to murder for them.
Roll out.
The first generation Transformers included 18 Autobots and 10 Decepticons that turned into cars, trucks, and planes. They were so popular, the first animated show was created in the same decade. Over the years, many more animated shows and movies would follow with toy lines to match. Today, Transformers are bigger than ever, thanks to the 6 blockbuster 6 movies? That can't be right. 6? Wow.
I don't know what you're smoking in that pipe, man, but what's going on here?
My Little Pony galloped into kids' hearts in 1982, with beautiful rainbow hair that was just begging to be brushed and braided. The My Little Pony brand has spanned decades with successful cartoons, movies, and merchandise. And as the ponies evolved, so has their fan base. Enter the Brony.
This is my mum's house, yeah. I'm an accountant, and I'm 26 years old. So.
Single?
Yes.
All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy.
Game Boy was a game changer. The Game Boy was light years ahead of the existing handhelds and dominated the market when it was released in 1989. Tetris, Super Mario, and Kirby's Dream Land transformed those long car trips to Grandma's house into an adventure. The Game Boy went through several iterations between 1989 and 2005 when it was discontinued. But if you love your Nintendo Switch, take a moment to show respect to where it all began. The Big Wheel came out in 1969 but sold like crazy in the 1980s. The wheels were plastic, offering little to no traction, which would have been a disadvantage except Power Slide. And in 2009, the Big Wheel was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame. The Etch A Sketch was invented in 1960 by an electrical technician named Andre Casañez and introduced to the National Toy Hall of Fame in 1989. It's one of those toys we all know and has been featured in movies and TV shows for decades.
That ain't no Etch A Sketch.
Most of us just fooled around on these for fun and then gave them a shake. But there was always that one kid that was a straight-up savant on this thing.
It's beautiful.
In 1996, Nintendo 64 was released. For the first time, Mario existed in a 3D environment, and our brains exploded. The graphics and gameplay marked a massive leap in gaming tech, and though it never reached the commercial success of the PlayStation 1, released 2 years earlier, many N64 games have become legend. Titles like Mario Kart, Star Fox 64, and the world's greatest sleepover game and godfather of the first-person shooter, GoldenEye. Introduced in 1998, this animatronic pet was programmed with 800 words and phrases. Despite its gremlin-like appearance and creepy eyes, 1.8 million Furbies sold in the first year, resulting in about $14 million in sales. Based out of Chicago, these Ty Warner Teddies surpassed $1.4 billion in sales by 1998 and kicked off a collector craze that hadn't been seen since the Cabbage Patch Kid. The good news is, this time cooler heads prevailed, and consumer behavior was much more rational.
they would just lunge and grab.
Beanie Wrap, it's a beanie wrap.
Soccer boppers were more fun than a pillow fight, with a catchy commercial and infectious theme song. Now you may be thinking, soccer boppers? Weren't those things called sock-um boppers? Am I going crazy? Is this the Mandela effect? Well, you're not crazy.
Sock-um boppers, more fun than a pillow fight.
Mattel sued Big Time Toys for trademark infringement over the use of the name Sock-um because they were making these. So this
Sock-um boppers
became this.
Soccer boppers.
A Tamagotchi is a virtual pet on a keychain released in 1996. Players would press buttons to feed their pet, play with it, or clean up its virtual poop. Demand for the Tamagotchi was so insane, people would do anything to get their hands on one. Over 80 million were sold during the 90s, and they're still being made today. That's a lot of digital poop to clean. The Easy Bake Oven was invented in 1963, but it became all the rage in the 90s when it was re-released by Hasbro. Kids baked prepackaged cake and brownie mix with the aid of twin 100-watt incandescent light bulbs. Light bulbs seem harmless, but the inside of the oven could get up to 350 degrees.
Hot.
Be careful. You all right?
The Easy Bake Oven is so well known, it's part of our cultural fabric, and was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame in 2006. In the 80s and 90s, video games were in their infancy, and Saturday morning cartoons were essentially hours of toy commercials. The list of iconic toys from this era could go on forever. But now you know a little bit more about some of the most popular toys of the 1980s and 90s. If you like this video, subscribe and check out our channel for more cool stuff.